Welcome. If you've found your way here, chances are you're the kind of person who likes your stories slow and your thoughts deep. This episode is for you. We're about to trace the life of one of the greatest minds of the 20th century, a man who saw machines not just as tools, but as something almost alive. A man whose ideas planted the seeds for everything from smartphones to synthetic minds. But before we begin, if stories like this stir something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend who loves a good, quiet mystery. Subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. And if you leave a comment, is there a moment in tech history you're quietly obsessed with? A thinker you wish more people knew about? We'd love to hear about it. Whisper your thoughts in the comments. All set? Let's begin with the boy who dreamed in code. History does not always recognize its prophets. Sometimes, the mind that sees furthest is the one least understood. This is the story of a boy who thought in symbols, who spoke to numbers when no one else would listen, who glimpsed the future through equations, and paid the price for dreaming too soon. Before artificial intelligence had a name, before computers had screens, there was Alan. Just Alan. Quiet, restless, unshakably curious. This is where it begins. Alan Matheson Turing was born on June 23, 1912, in Maida Vale, London, to Julius and Ethel Turing. His father was a civil servant for the British Empire, stationed in India. His mother, deeply proper, deeply religious, saw the world through hierarchy and tradition. Alan, even as a toddler, did not. While other children mimicked behavior, Alan asked why things were. He seemed detached from manners, oblivious to social norms, but fiercely attuned to patterns. He loved shapes, sequences, objects that could be rearranged, recombined, reimagined. Where others played with toys, Alan played with ideas. At age 6, Alan was placed in the care of a retired army couple while his parents remained in India. He did not like them. They did not like him. He was awkward, blunt, eccentric. He preferred books to people, logic to etiquette, solitude to conversation. At Sherborne School, a prestigious English boarding school, Alan struggled socially. He was mocked for his gait, his voice, his unfiltered thoughts. But in mathematics, he saw beauty, a refuge of rules, a sanctuary of certainty. Teachers called him careless, disrespectful, undisciplined. But Alan wasn't rebelling. He simply didn't see the point of rote memorization when he could derive the answer on his own. At Sherborne, Alan met Christopher Morecambe, a fellow student just a year older. Christopher was everything Alan wasn't: confident, composed, socially graceful, and just as brilliant. They became inseparable. Alan's letters to Christopher, earnest, vulnerable, filled with admiration, hint at a first love. For once, Alan wasn't alone in the universe of ideas. But in 1930, just before Christopher's 19th birthday, he died, suddenly, of bovine tuberculosis. Alan was devastated. He wrote, "I am sure I could not have found anywhere another companion so brilliant, and yet so charming and unconceited." But from this grief, something new took shape. A question. Could the mind survive death? Could consciousness exist separately from the body? It would haunt him and shape the rest of his life. In 1931, Alan entered King's College, Cambridge. There, among scholars and thinkers, he finally found a home. He read mathematics, logic, and quantum physics. He devoured the work of Bertrand Russell, Kurt Gödel, David Hilbert, and Ludwig Wittgenstein. He began to think deeply about the limits of thought. Could all truths be proven? Could all logic be captured in a single system? And if so, could a machine be made to do that? In 1935, at age 22, Alan was elected a Fellow of King's College for a paper in probability theory. But his most radical idea was yet to come. In 1936, Turing published a paper titled On Computable Numbers, with an application to the Entscheidungsproblem. The problem it addressed was complex, but its consequences would remake the world. Turing proposed a theoretical machine. It had an infinite tape, a read-write head, a set of states and instructions, and it could simulate any computation that could be logically described. It would later be called the Turing machine. He had, without knowing it, invented the computer, not in hardware, but in pure logic. More than that, he had proven that some problems could never be solved by logic alone. This was not just math. It was a new vision of thought itself, abstract, mechanical, and ultimately limited.
Turing's ideas were not technical novelties. They were philosophical provocations. What is thinking if a machine can do it? What is knowledge if some truths can never be known? And what is the mind if it can be modeled in gears and symbols? These questions were not yet fashionable. To many, they seemed speculative, even absurd. But Turing had glimpsed something no one else had, that intelligence could be separated from flesh, that thought could be abstracted, replicated, engineered. He was 24 years old, and he had already cracked the soul of the machine. The enigma of a boy was never that he didn't fit the world. It was that he saw another world entirely, one where thoughts could live outside the brain, where minds could be built, not born, where logic could dream. But the world was not ready, not for his vision, and certainly not for him. It began with a summons, a letter, a train ticket, an invitation, wrapped in silence. The year was 1939. Europe trembled on the edge of catastrophe, and in a quiet English estate known as Bletchley Park, a secret war was about to begin. Not with bombs, but with ciphers. Not with soldiers, but with thinkers. And at the center of it all was Alan Turing. To understand what happened at Bletchley Park, we must first understand the enemy, the Enigma machine, a German cipher device that looked like a typewriter, but concealed a labyrinth of complexity. Every keystroke scrambled through rotors, plug boards, and reflections, producing a letter that seemed random, but it wasn't. The machine used rules, mechanical logic, to produce its codes. There were over 150 quintillion possible settings, a new configuration every day, and thousands of messages intercepted daily. The Allies knew the messages were there, but they couldn't read them, not without the key. And that key changed constantly. Breaking Enigma wasn't just hard, it was considered impossible. Bletchley Park was Britain's best-kept secret. An old country mansion surrounded by gardens and sheds, suddenly transformed into an intelligence nerve center. They brought in chess champions, crossword experts, poets, linguists, cryptographers, mathematicians. Each person given just a sliver of the puzzle. And at first glance, Turing didn't fit in. He was odd, abrupt, often lost in thought. He sometimes rode his bicycle with a gas mask on, not because of air raids, but because of hay fever. But when he looked at Enigma, he didn't see confusion. He saw structure, a dance of logic, a machine to be outmatched by another machine. Turing's greatest insight was this: don't try to guess the daily settings manually. Build a machine that can do it faster than any human ever could. He designed what became known as the bomb, a massive electromechanical device capable of simulating thousands of Enigma configurations per second.
The bomb searched for contradictions. If a certain setting implied that a letter decoded to two different letters elsewhere, it was impossible. The machine moved on. Over time, it ruled out impossibilities, until only the correct settings remained. This wasn't brute force. It was logical elimination, done at a scale no human mind could attempt. In 1940, the first bomb, named Victory, went online. And for the first time, the Allies began to read the enemy's mail. Turing didn't lead with ego. He worked quietly, relentlessly, often skipping meals, rarely sleeping. He was known to chain his teacup to a radiator to keep others from using it. He stuttered when nervous. He mumbled through ideas no one else could follow, but his colleagues grew to rely on him. Many said in hushed tones, "If Turing's stuck, we're all stuck." By 1941, his work, along with that of fellow codebreakers like Gordon Welshman, Joan Clark, and Dilly Knox, was turning tides. Decoded messages revealed German troop movements, U-boat positions in the Atlantic, planned air raids. The war began to tilt. And no one outside Bletchley knew why. Winston Churchill called the Bletchley codebreakers the geese that laid the golden eggs and never cackled. They weren't allowed to cackle. They signed the Official Secrets Act, sworn to silence, for life, even after the war, even after the machines were dismantled, even after the messages stopped coming. Turing's contribution remained hidden for decades, but historians now estimate the work at Bletchley shortened the war by at least 2 years. It may have saved over 14 million lives. Yet when the war ended, there were no parades, no medals, no headlines, only silence. And Alan moved on, as if it hadn't happened at all. Turing had proven something extraordinary, that thought could break secrets, that machines could outpace men, that logic applied with compassion could save millions. But no one would know, not yet, not even him. In war, Alan Turing built machines to break secrets. In peace, he dreamed of machines that could think. It was 1945. The war was over. The bombs were dismantled. The world, shaken and scarred, turned its eyes toward peace and technology. Radar, rockets, nuclear energy. But Turing was thinking of something quieter, something stranger. A new kind of mind. Not born, but built. Turing took up a post at the National Physical Laboratory in the UK, where he drafted a design for an ambitious machine, the Automatic Computing Engine, or ACE. It was to be a universal computer, far more powerful than anything that existed. Based in part on his 1936 paper on the Turing machine, it was a conceptual leap from theory to reality. He wrote, "What we want is a machine that can learn from experience." But progress was slow. The bureaucracy dragged. The vision outpaced the materials. And in 1947, frustrated, he stepped away. He returned to Cambridge, then moved to Manchester, where the world's first stored program computer would soon be built. But even as hardware advanced, Turing's mind was elsewhere. He was asking something that no one else dared. What is mind, really? And could a machine have one? In 1950, Turing published what would become his most famous work, Computing Machinery and Intelligence, published in the journal Mind. It opened not with a declaration, but with a game, the imitation game. Imagine a man and a woman hidden behind screens. An interrogator tries to determine who is who by asking questions. Now replace the woman with a machine. If the interrogator cannot tell which is which, can we say the machine is thinking? This became known as the Turing Test, a new behavioral definition of intelligence. Not what's going on inside the machine, but how well it convinces us it's human. It sidestepped metaphysics and grounded the debate in observation. The brilliance of the Turing test was not in the game itself. It was in what it revealed about us. Because when we judge a machine's mind, we're also judging our assumptions about thought, our biases about consciousness, our comfort with imitation. Turing anticipated the objections. Machines can't have emotions. They can't create. They don't have souls. They can't make mistakes. And he answered each, not by dismissing the concerns, but by reframing them. He wrote, "Instead of trying to produce a program to simulate the adult mind, why not try to produce one which simulates the child's?" He saw intelligence as developmental, adaptive, trainable, not a fixed essence, but a process. Turing's paper laid the groundwork for what would later be called artificial intelligence. It wasn't about machines simply calculating faster. It was about machines that could learn, respond, generalize, interact, improve. He envisioned machines that could play chess, translate languages, compose music, hold conversations. Decades before Siri or ChatGPT, he saw the possibility of machine minds that sounded human, not as science fiction, but as inevitable consequence of mathematics and engineering. At the time, Turing's ideas were met with polite confusion. AI did not yet exist as a field. There were no conferences, no grants, no neural networks, no data sets. He was speaking to a room that hadn't yet been built. But that room would come, and when it did, his name would be carved on its foundation. In just 20 pages, Turing changed the question from, "Can machines think like humans?" to, "Can we accept machines that do?" He did not try to humanize machines. He tried to understand humanity through them, and perhaps to understand himself. We now step into the darkest chapter of Alan Turing's life. This is not a story of science or theory. It is a story of a man undone not by failure, but by the world he tried to save, a world too small to hold his truth. Here, the mind that dreamed in code is punished not for what it built, but for who it loved. By 1952, Alan Turing had cracked uncrackable codes. He had imagined machines that could think. He had done more to win a war than most soldiers, but in the end, none of that would matter. What mattered was a secret, a truth he never tried to hide. Turing was openly, quietly gay, at a time when homosexuality in Britain was still a criminal offense. He didn't flaunt it, he didn't deny it. To those who knew him, it was simply part of who he was. In January 1952, Turing met a young man named Arnold Murray. The relationship was brief, complicated, and soon, tragic. Turing's house was burgled. He reported it to the police. In his statement, he mentioned Murray. What followed was surreal. Turing wasn't asked about the theft. He was arrested for gross indecency. His honesty became his undoing. At trial, there was no defense. Turing didn't deny his relationship. He refused to lie. The court gave him two options: prison, chemical treatment to reduce libido, what they called hormonal therapy. He chose the latter. He was injected with synthetic estrogen for a year. His body changed. His mind slowed. He grew breasts. He became depressed. He was no longer permitted to work on classified material. The government that had entrusted him with its deepest secrets now labeled him a security risk. He was removed from national projects, isolated from colleagues, forgotten by institutions he had helped define. In the following year, Turing retreated into small routines. He continued his work at the University of Manchester, focusing on mathematical biology and morphogenesis, the study of how natural patterns, like stripes on a zebra or the spiral of a shell, emerge from simple rules. Even here, his mind remained sharp, curious, unruly, but his spirit was dimming. The treatments left him chemically altered. The shame imposed by the state weighed heavily. His sense of humor grew stranger. He began telling friends about a silver spoon he believed was haunted. He claimed to be communicating with extraterrestrials using coded messages. It's unclear how much was serious and how much was defiance in disguise. But one thing was clear: Alan Turing was drifting away. On June 7, 1954, Turing was found dead in his home. Beside his bed was an apple, half-eaten. He had died from cyanide poisoning. The coroner ruled it suicide. He was 41 years old. The apple was never tested. Some believe it was how he took the poison. Others say it was coincidence. He often ate apples before bed. There's even a rumor, never confirmed, that Apple Inc.'s iconic logo, an apple with a bite taken out, was inspired by Turing's death. The company has denied it, but the symbolism lingers. The fruit of knowledge, bitten, forbidden, fatal. Alan Turing left behind no memoir, no final confession, no message, just questions. What ideas died with him? What algorithms never got written? What could he have become had he been allowed to simply be? It took decades for Britain to acknowledge the injustice. In 2009, Prime Minister Gordon Brown issued a public apology, calling Turing's treatment appalling. In 2013, Queen Elizabeth II granted him a royal pardon, 59 years too late. In 2017, the UK passed the Alan Turing Law, posthumously pardoning thousands of men convicted under outdated anti-gay laws. And in 2021, Turing's face replaced Winston Churchill's on the £50 note, the ultimate symbol of trust, given to a man once discarded. He saw what no one else could see. He gave the world a new way to think, and in return, the world turned away. But the mind he left behind, the dream he carved into logic and wire, still hums through every chip, every screen, every system that thinks today. The man is gone, but his ghost lives in the machine. Alan Turing is long gone, but his fingerprints remain on every algorithm, every circuit, every thought we try to automate. His vision was not just of thinking machines, but of what it means to be a thinker in the first place. This is not an ending. It is an afterglow. Ideas never die the way people do. They don't need a body, or a birthplace, or a passport. They live wherever minds pick them up and carry them forward. Alan Turing's body was laid to rest in 1954, but his mind, his code, was just beginning its work. In the decades that followed his death, a curious thing happened. Every time a computer grew more capable, more language-aware, more strategic, more intelligent, someone would eventually trace the lineage back to Turing, not because he built the machines we use now, but because he imagined the possibility before anyone else could even articulate the question. His 1936 concept of the universal machine became the blueprint for the general-purpose computer. His 1950 thought experiment, the Turing Test, became the moral and philosophical battleground of artificial intelligence, and his unspoken message, whispered through logic, code, and contradiction, was this: to understand the mind, we must be willing to build it. In 1956, just 2 years after Turing's death, a group of scientists gathered at Dartmouth College in the United States. They called it the Dartmouth Summer Research Project on Artificial Intelligence. It was the moment AI became an official field. Among the attendees, John McCarthy, Marvin Minsky, Alan Newell, Herbert Simon. They spoke of symbolic reasoning, decision trees, logic programs. They did not mention Turing directly, but they didn't have to. He was already in the room, in the assumptions, the terminology, the very notion that intelligence could be modeled. The seed had taken root. As AI evolved, from rule-based systems to neural networks, the Turing test remained a North Star, not for technical success, but for philosophical confrontation.
Every time a machine fooled a human into thinking it was human, we returned to Turing's quiet question. If a machine can convince us it's thinking, should we treat it as though it is? The question never grows old, because it is not about machines. It is about us, our thresholds for trust, our definition of consciousness, our need for certainty in an age of simulation. In the 21st century, Turing's legacy has only grown more central. He is taught in every computer science curriculum. His name is on the Turing Award, the highest honor in computing. His face appears on currency, statues, and stamps. His story has been told in books, documentaries, and films, including The Imitation Game, where Benedict Cumberbatch portrayed him with haunted brilliance. But beyond the symbols and ceremonies, Turing's legacy lives in the machines themselves. Every time an AI model translates a sentence, finishes your email, drives your car, talks to you with something like empathy, a sliver of Turing moves beneath the surface, because long before anyone else believed it, he did. What did Turing ultimately want? Fame? No. Recognition? Perhaps. But more than that, he wanted to know, can we build something that thinks, not as a novelty, but as a mirror, a partner, an evolution? He saw that the mind is not a single thing, but a system, not sacred, but replicable, not fixed, but fluid. And in that realization, he stumbled upon something close to creation. Because what is artificial intelligence really, if not a child of thought itself? Today, we build machines more powerful than Turing could have imagined. They compose symphonies, paint images, write poetry, hold conversations. Some argue they passed the Turing Test. Others say it was never a test at all. But perhaps the real legacy of Turing is this. He taught us how to ask the question, how to wonder, how to doubt, how to see beyond what is obvious. And in doing so, he brought us closer to understanding not just machines, but ourselves. The man is gone, but in the hum of every thinking machine, he lingers, a ghost, a whisper, a mind that dreamed in code. That was the story of Alan Turing, a boy who asked questions too big for his time, a man who helped end a world war and start the computer age, a thinker who imagined minds inside machines, and a soul the world wasn't ready to carry. We live in the future he helped unlock. Every screen, every algorithm, every artificial mind owes something, somewhere, to the questions he dared to ask. He did not live to see what he built, but perhaps he dreamed it. Thank you for listening. If this story moved you, if it stirred something quiet and strange and curious, share it with someone who thinks like you do. And if you'd like to hear more stories like this, more minds, more moments, more forgotten sparks of genius, subscribe. There's more to come, because the history of AI isn't just about machines. It's about people. Strange, brilliant, broken people who gave us the future, one thought at a time. See you again soon. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed.